Vice President for Global Public Policy at Comcast Corporation. But she has a very interesting career. She knows the field from a number of different perspectives. She knows it from the corporate world, but she worked at Stifel Financial for a while, and she worked for the international division of the Federal Communications Commission. So she knows that field from a number of different perspectives, and it's my great pleasure to introduce her to say a few words to you. Thank you.
Thanks. It's nice to see old friends here, and it's nice to. I enjoy my current position. I'm now with Comcast. Before that was in the government and on Wall Street, and before that in academics. So I love this group of people because it brings together people from all of those different disciplines, and it really is a treat to be here. So thank you, Professor Bauer. This is your 40th anniversary, correct? Yep. And it's occurring in the shadow of a very tight presidential election. So just a couple weeks from now, we're going to see the first debate of the campaign. I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest or predict that I don't think telecom policy will be a hot topic of the debate. But jobs creation, economic development, healthcare, education, energy, and foreign policy will be hot topics of the debate. And a robust, strong, free internet is fundamental to all of those issues. As Julius Janikowski, our current FCC chairman, has said many times, broadband isn't the solution to any one of our problems, but it's part of the solution to many of them. So I think whoever ends up winning this election, the debate over the right policies for the evolving internet economy are going to play a crucial role in both our domestic and our international policy during the next administration. So in spite of what is, I think all of us would agree, particularly polarized political landscape, I think the one thing that most people here would agree on is that the two significant federal communications laws that were passed in the 90s, the 92 Cable Act and the 1996 Telecom Act, are outdated. So I thought, I'm the Warm-Up Act, so to appreciate how the industry has changed and the challenges that change presents to legislatures, to regulators, and to policy wonks, I thought we'd step back and look at the world like it was in the 1990s. So in 1992, Bill Clinton was elected president, but don't we all miss him? Bill Clinton was elected president. He defeated Bob Dole and Ross Perot. How long has it been since we thought about Ross Perot? Johnny Carson was wrapping up his time on the air, and Prince Charles and Princess Diana had just announced their separation. So the 60% of households that subscribed to pay TV back then were keeping up with these events on one of their 40 analog networks. And a surge in the demand for broadband was still a decade away. So by 1996, Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House. The top-rated TV show was ER, and the Billboard #1 hit single was The Macarena. Just pause on that for a moment. Cable industry was just starting to prioritize a research program that would later allow for broadband over cable, and it adopted the name DOCSIS, which I still think was probably an unfortunate label, but they didn't ask me. The broader industry at the time was very compartmentalized. There were 6 Bell local companies, 5 major long-distance companies, cable companies, computer companies, and software companies. The long-distance market at that time was so intensely competitive that they would send people checks to switch carriers. They actually paid us to become customers. Cell phones pretty much were used for outbound calling. Nobody would give away their number because they were afraid somebody might call them, and they'd have to pay for it. Motorola unveiled the first clamshell phone, the StarTAC, and it retailed for $1,000. There was a new thing called the internet that had just been commercialized. It was dial-up. AOL was sending CDs in the mail, and the first web-based mail service, Hotmail, was introduced. CDN was still shorthand for Canadian. Mark Zuckerberg was 12 years old. I think he still is. The WTO agreement in basic telecom services, which is a big part of my life in that decade, opened up the global market to competition, and companies flooded into each other's markets at the time, only to pull out about a decade later. The Telecom Act was passed, and it spurred just a crushing amount of capital invested in CLECs. There were risks taken, jobs created, and then the high market caps of the late 1990s burst with the tech bubble. Capital was lost, jobs were lost. Silicon Valley, a famous Silicon Valley VC, identified what he called the most single transformational event of his entire career, the AOL-Time Warner merger. These aren't criticisms, but they illustrate the rapidly evolving nature of this industry. Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich are still making headlines, but most of us read those headlines on our smartphones. So like the 1990s, which were uncertain times, and now are uncertain times, there was a lot of innovation, ingenuity, risk-taking, and most importantly, resources. The change demonstrates that no one knows the outcome. There are no perennial losers, no perennial winners. Technologies succeed, technologies fail, business plans succeed, business plans fail. So to bring us to today, according to some statistics from Intel, every 60 seconds, I know I hate numbers, they just sort of blur, but think about this for a second. Every 60 seconds, YouTube users upload another 30 hours worth of videos. Amazon rings up another 87,000 in online sales. And for the benefit of the real techies in the house, every 60 seconds the internet transports 640 gigabytes of IP data. So I'd like to give a nod to Kent Walker. I don't know how many of you know him. He's Google's general counsel, and he made remarks last month at Aspen where he recognized what he called the magic of technology. And he noted that the magicians of technology haven't just delighted customers, they've actually changed our culture and our economy. So we're seeing things now that folks a generation ago would have found not just surprising, but absolutely amazing. And I think that what keeps bringing us back together every year for this conference and for these kind of conversations is that magic. We share a commitment, regardless of our political persuasion, and I believe this, to developing policy that pushes that magic in the right direction, to bring people together, to raise living standards, and to solve more problems than we create. It would take nothing, I believe, short of magic and a recognition that for the sake of the country, we've got to get our internet policy right to keep bringing us all inside on a beautiful September weekend. But unlike magic, the building blocks of the internet don't come out of thin air. They require investment. The broadband industry has invested nearly $1.2 trillion since 1996. Nearly 1/3 of PPI, the Progressive Policy Institute, they came out with a report looking at what companies, how much capital investment there was, CapEx in the US in the last year, and 1/3 of those companies were tech companies. So Intel, Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, Time Warner Cable, Google, and Apple made up 1/3 of the top. And PPI found that the apps economy added 466,000 jobs since 2007, which is one of the few bright spots in our economy for jobs creation. So if the magic's to continue, I think the goals for policy, for any policy for the internet economy should include first, giving consumers what they want through a flexible and robust marketplace. Second, freedom of expression, freedom of investment, digital opportunity, and job creation throughout the entire internet economy. Open communication, which we all, I think, increasingly recognize the importance of to support a free flow of information. The ability to enhance the personal, the professional, and the civic lives of all Americans, but really all throughout the globe. Respect for the legitimate rights of people and organizations, and a continued support for America's leadership in the role of the internet economy. I believe in these goals. I know it sounds corny, but I do, and I think we all believe in these goals. The question is how to achieve them. So fortunately, policymakers have the benefit of TPRC presenters and the audience to help lay the foundation for the debate. For the last 40 years, TPRC participants have time and again proven that they have an appetite for rigorous analysis and for new ideas. So it's my pleasure to introduce the panel that's going to kick us off tonight and talk about how research can contribute to policy making. Someone suggested that I introduce Joe Woz as the Charlie Rose of communications policy, but I actually think that Charlie Rose is the Joe Woz of TV journalism. Thank you.